There are no groups in the United States, but very few groups in the world that are actually looking at questions that are related to surfing right now. So what we're doing here is really, really unique. And it's inspiring too, because we also are located right in the hub of action sports in the surfing industries. And then you have two professors that both are passionate about surfing and also whose interests in research complement one another.
You have someone who's interested in physiology, and then you have someone who's interested in mechanics and engineering, and I think those two areas are really the ideal combination for studying surfing.
I'm allowed to bring my passion of surfing into the classroom and share that with the students, and they get a learning experience out of it, and hopefully get them passionate about research in general by having that connect with surfing. My passion is also allowing me to help the surfing community by testing the products that are being manufactured by the surf industry right now.
For us, it's a great partnership. We have different goals in mind, but really the means is the same. For Hurley, we want to improve our products, and for Cal State San Marcos, they want to improve their curriculum and their students. And so by collaborating on these types of projects, we could achieve both.
It's a sport that's been around for 100 years. More and more people are getting involved, but there's really limited data about it. So we really need to understand the benefits and how this sport in itself is impacting people.
Before we can even start to look at these questions, a lot of times we have to come up with a way to actually do this in water. How do we track motion in water? We can do it in a laboratory with a camera system, but in water now we have motion that occurs underwater and above water, and so how do we merge those two volumes?
What's impressive to us is the protocols that they've put in place to actually analyze and get data in this diverse environment. Surf products are actually very subjective. And so, a board feels fast or a wetsuit feels cold. And so by being able to sort of quantify these ideas and these technologies, we could inform our decisions based on actual facts instead of opinion.
We really enjoy what we do. We think this is the greatest job a person can have. It's personally rewarding when we see students getting engaged, and we can use it as a way to teach them some very complex ideas in biomechanics and physiology.
It truly is a win-win. For Hurley, we have a chance to give back and support education, and at the same time, we could move the sport of surfing forward with science and technology.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brian Kelly, Editor and Chief Content Officer of U.S. News and World Report.
You've already made my day. Thank you. These are the A students. I just want you to know. Everybody reach around, pat yourself on the back. The folks who stay the best for last, they're the ones who get the most out of it. So a great crowd here this morning, and I appreciate it. We've got a great final program. We will move it along. We're not going to keep you too long, but there's some terrific things that we want to get to. Starting with that video, I thought was terrific. It gives you a little sense of the flavor of certainly San Diego. We've got a lot of San Diego focus this morning. We've had it throughout the conference. Great place with lots to learn on the whole STEM and education and jobs issue. The sports component of that, Kelvin Beacham from the New York Jets was here at one of our panels this morning. We stress so much how important it is to get the conversation out of this room, to get spokespeople who understand STEM but can communicate it in a different way than many of us who've been toiling in the traditional spaces. So we want the message to get out, and those guys who have other day jobs but put their energy into this are really very valuable, and we appreciate it. Appreciate Kelvin being with us. So before we get down to business, we've got a bit of a treat here. We are giving away, via our friends at Office Depot, a drone. So this just came up, but we're happy to spread the joy. And one lucky conference attendee is going to get it. So I know people have been putting your names in, and Lindsay, thank you, our spokesmodel. I will be doing the drawing. I'm sure that this will be an honest. Go deep down there. All right. And the winner is Brian Kelly. No. The winner is Ken Berry, professor, school district, SMU. Ken? Are you here, Ken? Excellent. All right. We were going to say if you snooze, you lose. It's a good thing you're here, because I was going to keep the drone otherwise. But this is great, Ken. We've come on down. We will sign this over, and they will be flying the drone to your classroom. I'm sure this will get put to good use. So congratulations. That's terrific. And thank you for Office Depot for providing that. All right, good start. So if you're not from around here, I hope you can appreciate by now in the conversations we've been having that San Diego is a true hub for STEM innovation. But like the rest of the country, it has many challenges to overcome. For our closing discussion, we've gathered an extraordinary group of prominent leaders from local business, government, and education to discuss their achievements and the efforts to improve the local STEM landscape. Their insight, of course, will also help shape things on the national scale. As we always emphasize, STEM is a national problem with local and regional solutions. So let me get to the panelists. I'm going to introduce them and then take away the discussion. So first I want to introduce Mark Dankberg. He is the chairman of the board and chief executive officer of Viasat. Mark co-founded Viasat more than 30 years ago. He is an expert in communications technology, aerospace, satellites, and defense. He has advised the Department of Defense and Congress on communications technology matters. He is a member of the National Academy of Engineering and the Society of Satellite Professionals Hall of Fame. He is also a founding member of the Board of Directors of the San Diego Telecom Council. Please join me in welcoming Mark Dankberg. Also with us today is Francis D'Souza, President and Chief Executive Officer of Illumina, a global leader in DNA sequencing. Appointed in his current role last year after serving as president since 2013. Before Illumina, he was president of products and services at Symantec, co-founder and CEO of IM Logic, and a leader at Microsoft. Francis holds degrees in electrical engineering and computer science from MIT, and he is chairman of the board for MedHelp, an online health community. Thanks so much for being here, Francis. Next on our panel is Deborah Reed, chairman of the board, president, and chief executive officer of Semper Energy. Deborah has held a number of leadership roles at Semper. From 2006 to 2010, she was president and chief operating officer of San Diego Gas and Electric and SoCal Gas. In 2014, the Secretary of Energy appointed her to the National Petroleum Council. She is also a member of the boards of Halliburton and Caterpillar. Fortune and Forbes have recognized Deborah as one of the most powerful women in business and one of the most influential female CEOs. We are honored to have you with us today, Deborah. Rounding out our panel is Dr. Albert Pisano, Dean of the Jacobs School of Engineering at UC San Diego. Al has been dean since 2013. He also serves on the faculty of the Departments of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering and Electrical and Computer Engineering. Before UCSD, Al was a faculty member at UC Berkeley and held research positions at DARPA, Xerox, and GM, among others. He is a member of the National Academy of Engineering, a co-inventor on more than 20 patents, and the co-founder of a number of startup companies. Welcome to the stage, Al Pisano. Leading the conversation this morning is Congressman Scott Peters, who represents the 52nd District of California. He is a former environmental lawyer who served on the San Diego City Council, eventually as its president. He was later appointed to the California Commission on Tax Policy and was chairman of the San Diego Unified Port District. Elected to the House of Representatives in 2012, Congressman Peters serves on the Energy and Commerce Committee as well as the Committee on Veterans Affairs. Take it away, Congressman Peters.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks so much for, first of all, thanks for visiting San Diego. We love having you here. I hope you spend a lot of money and enjoy yourselves. And it's really great to be with such a distinguished panel. These are some of the business leaders we're really proud of, and we want to hear from them because they're all doing interesting and innovative things in their businesses, but also engaging people in STEM and getting young people to be involved. So let me kick it off with a couple questions, and I'll start with Mark. Viasat supports STEM in a number of ways, through employee volunteer programs in schools and colleges, by funding scholarships and competitions and more. So tell us about some of your efforts, how they're having an impact, and why it's important for Viasat to do something like that.
Well, one, it's important for us to do that because we thrive on having leading technology. That's what makes the company go, and it's the people that we hire that bring that to us. And what we like, the thing I like about technology in business is the sports analogy. I'm a little bit of a frustrated athlete, and I think of sport as business and technology as a way to compete. And it's a team sport. And one of the things we like to do to expose young people to that is to show them an environment where there's just this joy of competition and accomplishment that you can get from science and technology and engineering, where so many young people's first exposure to it is that it's rigorous and that it's exacting and you have to do things in a certain way, and they don't get exposed to that, just to the fun of achieving things. And so we sponsor things and have our people support things, including robotics or Science Olympiad. One of the ones I like the best that we've done for several years it's called Tech Trek, and it's organized
Somebody likes Tech Trek.
by the American Association of University Women. And what they do is they bring to UCSD once a year for a week a number of middle school women, middle school girls, which is the time when they fear that girls who have an interest in engineering or science and math sort of have that driven out of them or lose that. And then, so they have a week-long program on that, but they do a field trip to Viasat, and we try to show them, mostly with women that we have, just how much fun engineering can be and doing projects. And it's worked out really, really well. We've had alumni from the program come work for us eventually, or people that are chaperones at the program come work for us. So those are the things I think are the most fun in promoting STEM.
Great, well, thank you for doing that. Debbie, Semper has also built a wide range of partnerships with schools, nonprofits, after-school programs, and more, both here and throughout Southern California. Why don't you talk a little bit about how your company is working to strengthen the STEM pipeline from K-12 through the workforce, and why that's important to your company?
Yeah, I would say that we sponsor a lot of programs in the region, but what we look for in the programs we sponsor are things that will start young, because trying to get someone into STEM curriculum when they enter high school is not going to generally work. I mean, I have an engineering degree I went through, and had I started my math when I was in high school, the lack of confidence in being able to achieve wouldn't have been there. So I think it's really, really important to start young, make it fun, and we look for programs that are applied. So people actually get to see what you would do if you develop these types of skills, and that it's meaningful work, that they can do something that contributes to the world, that there's really good things that come out of it. And that also, I think, is really important, is instilling confidence that they can excel in these areas and that they can really achieve. So we look for confidence-building programs as well as part of our sponsorship. And to that end, that I think particularly for women in the sciences, that getting that confidence that they can be as strong as their male counterparts is extremely important. The data shows, yeah, very important. The data shows that women just don't feel that way. And as an example, that they did this study looking at women in the sciences, and that they had this job application, and they had 10 different characteristics, and they said, okay, what would you apply for this job? And men applied for the job if they had 3 out of the 10. Women needed 7. So I think we just need to have some things that build the confidence in women and minorities that they can be successful and have some great role models there.
Great. Yeah, I have a son who's much more confident than he should be, and
Yeah.
his daughter is much less confident than she should be.
That kind of
So I know
happens,
exactly
I
what
work
that's
with a
like.
lot of people who are a lot more confident.
That's right. So we know that phenomenon. Francis, I think one of the things that I'm proudest about in representing San Diego is that it's a real hotbed for innovation in the biosciences. I think we always say it's one of the top 3 regions in the country. We got genomics, biotech, life sciences, a tremendous number of jobs. And in genomics, really, this is a place where San Diego is really leading the world, and Illumina is leading here. So we're really proud to have you here. And I kind of wonder, what kind of skills are you looking for the people you hire? And maybe if you have some thoughts about what you'd like to see schools at the K-12 and college level do in the United States to deliver well-qualified new recruits. We can talk about immigration too if you want, but what should we be doing here to give Illumina the kind of employees that they need?
Sure. First, I'll start by saying that you're right. Genomics is really just a hometown success story here. If you think about just how important genomics is going to be for the future of healthcare, understanding the drivers of disease, and the impact that it can have in improving the lives of truly hundreds of millions of people, it's something to be terrifically proud of, that's being driven out of San Diego. Over 90% of the DNA sequences ever done have been done on Illumina machines, headquartered here in San Diego. So legitimately, a huge success for San Diego. In terms of what we're looking for, some things we're looking for you'd expect. In the end, we do create machines that help biomedical researchers and clinicians, and so we hire a lot of people that have sort of a hard science background, so biology, chemistry, math. But we're also looking increasingly for people with computer science background. So the amount of genomic data getting created doubles every 7 months. Wow. And so we're creating this huge amount of data where we will need people to help interpret and understand what that data means in terms of, again, our health and disease states. So we're increasingly looking for computer science graduates. And then in a lot of cases, what skills we're looking for didn't even exist 10 years ago. And so we are partnering locally to try and create new majors. And one big success story is the partnership we have with Miracosta Community College here, where we recognize there's a shortage of skills around biomanufacturing. And in fact, if you type in biomanufacturing into Microsoft Word, it shows it as a typo because that word didn't really exist a few years ago. And so what we've done with them is, we've joined with Sunny, the chancellor there, and she's doing a terrific job partnering with us to create a curriculum, and they're going to offer, bachelor's degrees in biomanufacturing, a whole new area. And so, those are the kind of skills we're looking for on the science side, but we hire people across every function. So we're looking for people that have skills in marketing, in finance, in all the other areas of our company as well, in HR. Most of all, though, what we want are people who are curious, because this whole area is being formed and created, and you've got to be a lifelong learner. Right. We're looking for people that are focused on innovation and are comfortable that we're learning this all together.
I love the idea that American innovation is outpacing the spell check. I think one of the funniest tours I took was I went to Tesla and they couldn't get the PowerPoint to work. I thought that was great. Innovation, right. Al, we're really proud of the Jacobs School of Engineering, a relatively new school of engineering. You've excelled at producing skilled graduates who are tackling some of the big challenges in public health, cybersecurity, bioinformatics, and really doing it in a way that's fresh and I think adapts well to the changing economy. What are you looking for to ensure that the next generation of engineers are going to be prepared for those jobs tomorrow, and how is it that UCSD is approaching that?
Right, so that's a big question, and part of the answer is I spend a lot of time actually listening to corporate executives, trying to learn from them what is it exactly they're looking for from their workforce. And a number of themes have emerged, and I've got some colleagues here that have actually had those conversations with. So the first thing is, I'll tell it as an anecdote, which is it's no longer sufficient to do it right. You have to figure out the right thing to do. And so there's this idea, and I'll coin it, I think Greg Papadopoulos named it this way, the engineer statesperson. An engineer, someone in STEM, someone who's pursuing science, also has to have a much greater perspective than ever before. And having that perspective, I think, is one of the key elements to increasing the innovation rate that a practicing STEM person can actually achieve. So we're revamping our curriculum. We have freshman project-based learning experiences where we build cohorts of 40 people, peer-to-peer teaching. We reach out K through 14. That's not a typo. We reach out not K through 12, K to 14, to bring people to our campus 80 times a year, just my school. The campus does an awful lot more, but just my school runs 80 outreach events a year. So we're basically polling the community, trying to respond to the needs and make sure that people in STEM have a much broader perspective than ever before.
Great. I'd like to go back to something maybe Debbie raised. You know, one of the biggest predictors for how well you'll do in school is how well your parents did in school. And so we see, I think, you see in STEM that a lot of the underserved communities are underrepresented, and in addition to women, but people of color are underrepresented. I wonder how much in the whole challenge of providing a good, talented workforce, how much of a challenge it is that young people can't even imagine what they might be able to do. I mean, when I heard about Illumina a few years ago in genomics, you know, just for me it was revealing. But talk a little bit about how it is you get little kids or elementary school kids to imagine themselves doing this kind of stuff when maybe their parents don't have any knowledge of it in the home.
Yeah, so I'll start and say, you know, I completely agree with you, and and it plays out in every community around the country and probably around the world, where you can be in a community, and in the same community you'll have, you know, kids that have terrific access to lots of STEM resources, and then a mile or two down the road you'll have a completely different world. And so one of the things that, for example, we've done, and we're expanding the program, is we've engaged with the local schools, and twice a month we'll bring in kids from elementary to high school to Illumina, and they'll spend the day with us at Illumina, where we'll show them not only what we do, but the kind of jobs that we have at Illumina. And so they can imagine themselves, you know, in those kinds of roles. And so, you know, and that's true twice a month, every month, where we bring in the students and the teachers. And we first did it with the mayor just in San Diego, and now we've expanded into a program called One Skills for San Diego, where it's more of a regional program. So we'll expand to elementary and high schools in a broader catchment area. And you know what's interesting is it's not just interacting with the students and inspiring them to see what they could do and the impact they could have. It's the teachers as well. Last week we had 200 students and teachers in, and we heard that, you know, somebody wanted an internship, and we were excited. We're like, great. And it turned out it was one of the teachers who said, you know what, I want to be an intern at Illumina. And part of it is also just showing the teachers, you know, that this is possible, so they can communicate that to their kids too. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would just add something to that. That in thinking about some of the students from areas where they don't have the home support. And, you know, I will tell you my personal story. My dad was a pipe fitter. My mom was a housewife. And so, you know, they could not help me with my math. They couldn't do that. So the teachers were so critical. Yeah. And the teachers identifying people that really have talent in those areas and ensuring that they get the kind of reinforcement and the mentoring and all. And then pairing them, we do a lot of the same kind of thing where we have our employees go out and work with the schools and present, but we also have programs where we have employees mentoring students. And so when you have a really exceptional student that doesn't have maybe the support at home because the parents just don't have the background and knowledge, I mean, realistically, the math and science that's done today in school, I don't think I could support a student through school right now, and because it's so much more complex. But the teachers identifying that and helping us to pair people with that can help and mentor those would really be a great way to provide that ongoing support. Because a lot of people just give up when they don't have the kind of support and resources.
Mark?
Yeah. The other thing I was going to bring up, it's a little bit show my age, but you know, when I was a kid growing up, we had the space program, and in the 1960s, you know, as a kid, you're just transfixed by what was going on with Mercury and Gemini and Apollo, and that was enormously inspirational. I mean, it was just part of your life, I felt, and I think that had a lot to do with a wave of people of my generation going into engineering and science, And sometimes it's difficult to calculate what the value of going to the moon is, as an example. But you look at what was accomplished there and the impact that had on building awareness. It's not something that we've really duplicated probably in the last 50 years, I think, as a nation in providing that level of inspiration.
It was inspiring and successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one of the other ways to get at this is to instill a sense of hope and accomplishment. Yes, you can do it. We have a mantra at the Jacob School, which is you're an engineer from day one. Now we're just talking about how much you need to learn. So I don't want to hear any of this quitting stuff. The other part of it is that we have 3 programs that are particularly effective at really showing young people that they can do it. Our biggest one is Cosmos, where as a graduating junior from high school, you can do a practice summer just as if you were in college. So we put a 1-month program on, we fill up the dorms, and we say, hi, if you go to college and you study, if you're a STEM major, you're gonna eat in a cafeteria like this, you're gonna have a room like this, you're gonna work in a lab like this, you're gonna have teachers like this, you're gonna have colleagues like this. That really builds a cohort very early on. We've also found that when you're a graduating senior in high school, it's really effective to bring you into engineering the summer before you arrive as a freshman. So we have our Engineering Summer Institute where we actually say, if you want to work hard, we will actually run you through as much of the first quarter during this summer as we can get you through. And what that means is when you show up in September, you say, hey, wait a minute, I can do this. I've seen it once before. I took the practice exams here. Now let me jump in that class. Okay. And this program is new. It's just the second time. But the anecdotal data is indicating that you're building powerful confidence in the young people that have these early exposures.
So maybe just follow up a little bit on institutions of education. So Francis, you noted you have a partnership with one of the community colleges, and I think a lot of people appreciate that not everyone has to have a 20 years of school like you did.
Not quite.
But but there's a lot of jobs that don't involve even 4-year degrees, but some technical assistance. I'm interested in whether you have any thoughts on partnering with the public school system in a way that would take these kinds of programs and institutionalize them and maybe bring them to scale. Does anyone have any thoughts about that? And sometimes I would just suspect that there's some resistance to some bureaucratic resistance to that kind of innovation. Am I reading that right? Have you have any light to shed on that?
I think that's a terrific idea and a direction we would like to push more into. I mean, one of the models that I'm looking at as a model that's been terrifically successful, I think, is what Code.org is doing for computer science. Yep. Where what they've done is they've gone online and they've started to create model curricula that people could use, including content that teachers have access to, and they could use that to teach computer science skills at the high school and possibly even the elementary school level. And so one of the things we're thinking about is, well, how could you do that for genomics and the related fields that we need maybe more in elementary school than we have today? And so we are partnering with some of the agencies out in DC, NHGRI, for example, Eric Green, to start to think about.
If you use an acronym, it costs you a quarter.
It's a government agency that focuses on genomics research.
You know what it stands for, Francis?
Yes, it's the Genomics Research Institute that's run by the National Institute of Health.
Because if he doesn't know, it costs $1. Go ahead, sorry.
But what Eric's thinking of there is exactly that, which is how does he create a set of curriculum that would be accessible to elementary schools, and a little bit on the pull method to say, look, it'll be accessible, and so to the extent that teachers want to introduce it into their classrooms, they can do it in bite-sized chunks. And so that's what we're thinking of, and again, a little bit inspired by the early success that we're seeing in computer science.
Right.
I think we're seeing a more of a groundswell of support for this sort of thing. I'll tell a funny anecdote. I had one computer science faculty member get frustrated at the level of preparation in computer science from one of the transfer colleges that we work with, no names to be named. He ended up going there, and after a short discussion, he said, you know, I could just come here and teach the preliminary course. And they said, okay. And he did it. And that made a huge difference, and the faculty there were involved in it, and the curriculum got changed and all that. And so now that part is working a lot better. So I think this, you know, there are many partnerships we have yet to form, and I think everyone's getting ready to form them.
And keep in mind, I think teachers can be intimidated by this. I know that the Learning Policy Institute says 3 out of 4 school districts in California have a shortage of the qualified teachers in math, science, and particularly in places that serve low-income students. They need to feel supported, not challenged as well. So, I mean, there must be some art in dealing with that also.
Now, one thing that you mentioned, Scott, that I think is really important as we look at the jobs that we have and the growth of jobs. A lot of the jobs are not going to require a college degree, but they will require STEM education. And that we've been working a lot at the community college level because our jobs require much more technical know-how than they used to ever. And that things are not done manually anymore. Everything is linked in with automated grid systems. And so that we really need people that come from high school that are not college bound but still have the skills. And so one of the things we've tried to do is partner with the community colleges to create programs like that as well. And I think you can't leave people behind that are not college bound in the STEM area.
Right. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah.
So in my role in Congress as an evangelist and representative for San Diego, I focus on, one of the things I focus on is technology and innovation. I push a lot for basic scientific research funding, particularly at the NIH, but also in energy, good high-skill immigration policy, good tax reform policy, patent protection, education policies, maybe to promote more STEM. But let me ask you sort of an open-ended question. What would you like to see from the federal government in terms of supporting the innovation economy in California? We've got a great lead in science. We'd like to keep it. How do you think we could help you in DC once we're a month from now past this real political phase?
Well, one thing. So we as a company interact a lot with the federal government, partly because we're in industries that are regulated. For instance, broadband connectivity, and partly because we provide things to the federal government. And one of the things I think is fundamental to advancements in science and technology is the ability to embrace uncertainty and ambiguity, right? It's that when you think about, one of the things that the United States does really, really well compared to any other country around the world is we tolerate mess, right? Is that we can deal with uncertainty and ambiguity. And one of the problems, I think a lot of times it's uncomfortable, being in those environments. And one of the things I think the government sometimes try to do is to dispel that discomfort by putting in a degree of certainty that may not be there. And I think that's actually in some ways counterproductive. And so, I think that the notion of when people look at entrepreneurship, and a fair amount of what we're talking about here in technology is entrepreneurs who want to break the status quo, want to do things that haven't ever been done. And that really depends on tolerance for ambiguity. And that means that, people say that what goes with innovation is failure, right? You cannot have innovation without failure. And one of the things, I like going back to the space program, because the 1960s, think about it, we went in like 8 years from nothing to landing people on the moon, and we didn't even have microprocessors, right? There were no, can you believe, sending somebody to the moon, no microprocessors. Now, in some sense, I don't think we could send a man to the moon in 8 years now from where we are today. And in some ways, I think that's because we've tried to drive failure out of innovation. And I think one of the things that is important is this concept that it's okay to do things that are unsuccessful. And that is hard because there's so much of a drive to drive out failure and uncertainties. And I think that is so fundamental to what makes the United States successful. When I look at our ability to compete around the world, we compete in, I ended up in space, right, in rocket science, and partly because of that exposure. But I look at how we as a country compete with all the other countries in the world, and I think the U.S. has a fabulous advantage there because of that messiness and uncertainty. I don't know some way to preserve that element while still funding things. It's a challenge.
I'm going to come back to everybody on that question, but I want to just offer an observation about Washington, D.C. and innovation. And just to that point, I mean, what you see when someone fails is they'll drag somebody from middle management in the bureaucracy in front of some panel and embarrass the hell out of them. And every time you see that, that is the sound of the government tightening up and getting more risk averse and more bureaucratic.
Yeah.
And so we do watch for that. I try not to ever yell at anybody on the microphone, but that's kind of a politically popular thing to yell at the bureaucracy. But in general, though, I think one of the things that we take for granted here and in places like San Diego or San Francisco or other places of innovation is a culture where we allow this to happen. Yeah. So you'll find conversations of people sitting around a table thinking about how to solve tomorrow's problems. And I may not know where you went to college or what your rank is, but in Washington, D.C., I want to know your title, and then I'll tell you if you have a good idea. And it's so hierarchical. It's actually, I always say Washington, D.C. is where innovation goes to get confused. So you've answered the question. You've answered the question I didn't really pose, but about the culture is really, it's a huge obstacle. And because government is made to move slowly, the founders wanted it to go slowly. But in this day and age, it's particularly a challenge. And something like the space program, again, to have the kind of consensus that we're going to make this an objective and we're going to stand behind these people as they make mistakes, we've gotten away from that a lot. I think it's a profound observation, and it's really important.
And it's a context for everything else that gets done.
Yeah,
right. You can't divorce that context from the sponsorship.
So anyway, I'd be interested to hear about policy or culture from any of you about what government could do to support.
I'll throw one out there, which is commensurate to the big surge after Sputnik. I would love to see a nationwide STEM internship program where you can just say, where are all the interesting things, where are all the interesting places you can experience the work being actually done, and then can we get the K through 12, including the teachers, tightly mixed in with that. Provide the opportunities so that students can say, hey, okay, if I study this, this is an example of what I would do. Because if you don't paint the picture of where they could go, it's a lot harder to say, study it because I told you so. And so we have programs, like that even in my school, where the other mantra is, I never want to hear, why do I have to take this class again? Because if you don't know, then I did my job wrong. Right. So something like that, I think, would help a lot.
So let me jump in and say, look, I think especially now as we're discussing the budget in Washington, I think it's essential that we remember how important government funding has been to research in the United States. So the model we have has been spectacularly successful and is being copied. So the government of China has modeled its research programs on how we do research here, like with the National Institute of Health, and their research, their investment in research is jumping 30% year on year, and in a few years will overtake us in terms of total dollar spend. And we know it's successful because if we look at the results, over the last 40 years, we've seen a drop in deaths from stroke and cardiovascular by 70%. We've seen the mortality rates associated with cancer drop over the last 2 decades. And for every 1% drop, not only are you eliminating a huge amount of human suffering, but you're saving $500 billion from the U.S. economy that's being spent there. And so I think there's just got to be a recognition that government spending on fundamental research works. It improves lives. It lowers costs, and it also creates jobs. We've seen studies now that show for every dollar that the government spends on research, they create $2.2 of economic value. In fact, one of the largest programs that the government did was the Human Genome Project, and the return from that is $178 for every dollar they spend. And so, we should look at the challenges in front of us. We have, in the US, 39 million people with type 2 diabetes, and that costs us $30 billion a year. And we can put out those grand challenges like we did with putting a man on the moon, and we should recognize that funding against those grand challenges will keep us competitive while creating jobs and saving lives. And so just recognize that that's really important, and one of the things we want to make sure we're helping you on is make that case for preserving the research budgets as all these conversations are happening around where we allocate our money.
You make investing in science sound almost greedy. Like, think of all the money we'll make. Debbie, do you have anything on that?
Well, I have to say I'm reluctant to ask the government to do anything, but putting that aside, I'm a highly regulated industry.
We have a good relationship, though.
But, one of the things I will say from a business perspective, and I'll talk about this as a CEO of a company that's very difficult, is there's a lot of exceptional programs that are already in existence that are quite successful around different in different locations. And it seems like we're always recreating new things. And if we could understand what's been there, what's been successful, what are the models that have been successful, and have knowledge of that, and then look at how those could be packaged in a way so that it's easy to bring them into a community and replicate them. Because I feel like we spend a lot of time starting over. Right. And so to me, how do you get the best and have it in a way that it makes it easier to implement in an area, and then you can really measure the success that's being achieved. So.
Do you have a sense of how you'd find out what was working and what wasn't from your seat?
Yeah, one of the things that I had on my list of things I think we need to figure out how to do is how to measure success better. And, it's not just getting people in the STEM programs and then having them graduate as engineers or STEM students, but it's also when they get in the workforce, do they stay in those areas? Mm-hmm. Because the dropout rate for women, that 1 out of 2 women drop out of STEM within 10 years of their career. They're not in a STEM job any longer. So why is that kind of thing happening? So, I'd like to look at kind of the measures of what as an employer would you want to see? And what I would like to see as an employer is the people that we hire wanting to stay in those areas that we hire them for and feeling confident and good about doing that. So if we could start looking at how we can measure some things that were true measures of success, and then look at the things that really contribute to that, and where those programs exist now and have been successful. Because the people in this room here, you do a lot of really good things, just exceptional things. The problem I have is that it's hard for us to figure out as corporations what all those are and how we can support them and which ones are the best for meeting the resources that we have available. So.
I'm going to go to Mark, but let me follow up on a question, because I think that you said something I hadn't really thought of before. I mean, the concept that girls peel off from STEM as they go through school is a widely observed phenomenon. But you said that women are leaving once they're already engineers in the job. So do you have a theory on why that is? You said you wanted to know why that is, but do you have a theory on why that is?
Well, I can look at some of the women in our company that have left or moved, and then look at personally that you need to fit. You need to be part of something. And I think one of the things we've been trying to do more is a lot more team-oriented problem solving, because a lot of the STEM curriculum used to be more about, and then the jobs used to be more about individual problem solving. And I don't think that works for a lot of the people that you want to get into your jobs. You want them to be team-oriented anyway. And so to form the work in a way that they can be part of a team and feel like they belong, I think is really, really critical. And I think we're starting to do a better job in that. But I can tell you, when I started, it was like you had your cubicle and you went in your cubicle and you were given this, pipeline problem to solve. And that's not, that doesn't make you feel engaged. And so I think we can do much better in the workforce in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing Francis pointed out that I'm a really big believer in is that what makes people successful in STEM is lifelong learning, right? That no matter what schools do, how prepared people are, their jobs will change, and that what you're looking for are people who want to learn, for their whole career. And that's really a responsibility that now is part of the company, right? You're not really looking at universities or K through 12 to teach them everything. It's that you're creating an environment where they want to learn. And I think that is an area where the market is, in some sense, working its magic, because the fact that there is a shortage of good technology, engineering, math people means that I think there should be more of a mindset that companies are fortunate to have good people work for them, as opposed to people being fortunate to have a job, right? And when companies have that attitude, they make their company a better place to work, and they focus on keeping people. And on the women's side, I think there is this inevitable conflict. I think that women end up between raising their families and their career. One of the things that's a little bit unique that I've gotten perspective of, because I had the same job for 30 years with this company, is we must have a dozen or 15 or so women who came to work right out of school, worked for a while, left in their 30s, raised a family, and then came back, maybe in their 50s or 40s, late 40s and 50s, and are really productive engineers again. And I think the idea is some of that is just the responsibility of companies, and the companies that do that well, I think will prosper, as a result of it.
Al, this sounds generally like the approach you have to take with millennials anyway.
Yeah, well, I'll just offer
which we all grumble about, by the way. They're a lot of work.
Yeah, well, how shall I say it? My school is twice the size of the population of Del Mar. All right, I have almost 9,000 students. Del Mar is 5,000 people. So I feel sorry for the mayor at Del Mar, but I feel sorry for myself too. All right, so I have this very unusual mix of inhabitants, as it were, that you have to take care of. And I think just having no one, the thought is no one program is going to solve the problem. The breadth and the diversity of people coming into STEM is increasing, not just by gender and ethnicity, but just by the way they think. And so no one solution is going to work. And so we put a number of programs out there, but they all have one thing in common, which is cohorts that have a view to where they're going. And I think that's got to be part of the solution.
So, maybe since I have such tremendous resources up here, I don't want to end without giving you the opportunity to kind of say, if you had one or two things that you could do to, from whatever seat you could sit in, to encourage young people in San Diego and around the country to get into STEM and become part of your workforce, what would they be? What do you think? You could be the president, the mayor, the speaker of the House, the CEO. What would you do to get young people into your company?
Well, I'd like to work at the Treasury and put the money into the system. And I already put my pitch out for what I think would really move the needle, which is to get a true statewide, let's say, start with California, STEM internship program going.
Internship program.
Yeah.
Deb?
We talked before, and this was the same concept that we both had, is that I think it has to be, when students are young, exposing to them to the opportunities that exist and getting them excited. I think Mark said that earlier, is that excitement of wanting to be part of it. And so I'd agree, I would put money into the internship program and start it earlier. I mean, we do internships for a lot of internships for people that are in college. We do few before that, but you really need to have the internships be before.
And your interns must have to feel like they're part of a team to go along with your theme.
Yeah, we give them assignments, like they patented something where they patented a device that we use to measure the electric vehicle charging from remote charging that can go on customers' bills. And they created that as a team and developed it, and we patented it. So we have things like that that the engineers do in a team-oriented manner. And we're very successful then of hiring those people in once they've worked there.
So if you just allow me to jump in one point, amplify something Deborah said. Internships have to be team internships.
Yes.
You don't put an individual into a strange situation. And Mark, maybe you could confirm this stat that I have with Viasat. We have a team internship program, no fewer than 2, no more than 4 students on the same project working for somebody. Okay. Depending on the company I talk to, I run a 55 to 85% success rate of that intern graduating and getting a job at that company. So, you know, I think a lot of what we're talking about is just familiarizing people with things that seem intimidating, and then showing that as a group, you know, you have your own little posse, and you can figure it out with the correct interactions.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to say, look, what I would love to see is, and it's going to sound like, you know, we coordinated, but not surprisingly, I would also like to see a deeper engagement at the K-12 level with, you know, with some of the hard sciences, right? So with the math, the biology, the computer science, but I want to make sure, and so it's about the curriculum development, it's about getting internships earlier in a way to make the sciences more approachable and accessible. But I want to make sure we do it in a way that's fun and engaging, right? And I want, like you heard earlier, Mark talked about the fact that people know there's a lot of hard work associated here, and I want to make sure we are equally focused on inspiring people, engaging the students, showing them how fun it can be. And a personal story, you know, a couple of months ago I brought my daughters to the San Diego Science and Engineering Fair, and you know, I saw these terrific middle school math teachers from Los Angeles, Lamar, David, Jimmy, and they had a group called the Music Notes, and they did a rap about math. And it was great, and my daughters loved it. And so I thought, well, we should do that about genomics. And so we engaged them, and you know, they created this wrap around genomics, which as we wrap up, you know, we'll do the worldwide debut. Yes, we'll do the debut of the video of the wrap around genomics, which we're going to make available. It's going to be on my Twitter feed after this, and we're going to put it on the web as well. But I want to make sure that we find many ways to, you know, ignite the passion and the imagination, and show kids that, you know, this is fun.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think is most important is to provide that inspiration, because it's hard, right? Because one of the things we talk about is how do we keep people engaged. And I think engineering and math is hard, but so are professional sports, as an example, right? If you look at what it takes to become a professional athlete and the amount of time, dedication kids will put into that, it's because they see, even though it may be unattainable, they see in the media and in their everyday lives what it would be like if they were successful. And I think that when you think about what we do, it is a team sport, and I think that's one. I mean, Al mentioned this, and we do these team internships, and we try to make it just all about accomplishment and competition and joy and fulfillment and doing challenging work that's lifelong. And I don't think a lot of kids don't see that aspect of engineering and math. They see the rote learning. They sort of see the push. You have to learn this, then you can do something, as opposed to here's what the payoff is, and now isn't it worth doing that? And I think if we could find a way to convey that, not just as companies, but more as a society, that would do a lot of good.
Great. I have time for just a couple questions, which I'll repeat because we're on TV, but go ahead, Mia.
So I love this discussion. It's really why I came for this meeting, and I love the idea of having some kind of a system, like a California-wide internship program and so on. There's one point I didn't hear about that I'd like to really ask you for, is to take into account those researchers, that's me, faculties, for example, what you
Yes.
But at the UCSD level, well, lab level, I love to show those kids how the science is done, basic science, really how to work on it. So, well, that takes my resources. So I would love to see this part of the internship program that I could apply as a professor.
Okay. I got you. So part of the comment is that from a researcher who's doing science at an institution, which is in a company that makes money, if we're going to do an internship program, we have to think about providing research or resources to supplement that to accommodate an internship.
Yeah, and what I heard actually is a little bit more than that even, which is, and it was the comment that came up, you know, a few days ago at our campus when we brought high school students in and the teachers were asking for internships. And what I heard is, you know, so at Illumina we have the iAspire program. We bring in 200 students a year as interns. Maybe it's time for us to seriously consider an internship program that's not just students, but teachers as well. That's an interesting idea.
Ma'am, or sir, sorry.
My name is Tommy Dedema from the University of California, Davis. My question goes to Mr. Francis. I wanted to know what can institution do to be able to get access to your biomanufacturing major curriculum.
Okay, so the question is, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so the question is, and thank you for that, what can an institution like yours at UC Davis, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, do to get access to the curriculum around biomanufacturing that I talked about us putting together? So we have put it together. Johan and our company worked with Sunny at the community college, right, to put together that curriculum. I'd be happy to, we're just putting it together with them. In fact, the first classes are going to go online this fall, but I'd be happy to share with you what we've put together with them so far. So if you want to reach out to me right after this, I'd connect you with that. Yeah.
One more question? Over here?
I'd like to know what we're doing at the federal level and more locally around teacher compensation, so actually raising the prestige and compensation for teachers, especially in STEM fields going forward.
Question is about what we're doing to compensate teachers, especially in STEM fields. Federal government's role is not so direct in that we do need to provide resources to schools for a couple of things. One is for Title I, for lunch programs, and then also IDEA funding for special education, which is a responsibility we impose on school districts. We've always said we're going to pay 40%, but the federal government never meets that, so it comes out of other programs. That's an indirect funding issue. The other thing I would just say that you should be weighing in with your state representatives and your local representatives that this is important to you. They need to hear from you that teacher compensation is important, and it's something to consider whether we'd have to pay different amounts of money to get math and science students or teachers to come work for the schools too. But those are conversations that I hope you'll have with your state and local representatives, and I will too, because you mentioned it. We have just a little time to wrap up, and we're going to wrap with the wrap. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to have you join me in thanking these tremendous panelists, and again, thank you all for coming today. Let's watch your movie.
Okay, I think we're going to play it.
Genomics, genes, DNA, information, genome, genetics. I study DNA. Yeah, I'm cracking the code. I study genomes, genes, and the DNA of people. Chromosomes consist of DNA, and genetics is the study of genes. What is a gene? Genes are a section of a genome that code for a protein. That's what I call a G code. Everyone has DNA kit. Do you know what DNA is? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Double helix is the structure for the molecule of DNA. ATGC are base pairs, nucleic acids for DNA. Genomics, genes, DNA, information, genome, genetics. I study DNA. I'm cracking the code. I study genomes, genes, and the DNA of people. Genomes, a complete set of genes, genetic material in the cell. Know what I mean? We know 23 pairs of chromosomes are smushed into each cell. 23 pairs are smushed. One set of chromosomes comes from your mama, one from your dad. Genome makes in full effect. Study of the genome, yeah, we know it's linked to DNA. What forms DNA? A, T, G, and C. A and T are paired, so are G and C. Yeah, genomics, genes, DNA, information, genomes. Genetics, I study DNA. Yeah. I'm cracking the code. I study genomes. Genes and the DNA of people. Genomics can let you know the likelihood or potential for disease. So it's necessary to study the genetic code.
When people reproduce, yeah, they pass down genes. Genomics help stop the passing of hereditary disease.
Genomic information helps rare disease detection, identify and fill the hole in a genetic code.
Forensics, being able to sketch a suspect from a drop of blood, can tell the color of hair or eyes from just one drop of blood.
Genomics, genes, DNA, information, genome. Genetics, I study DNA. Yeah. I'm cracking the code. I study genomes. Genes and the DNA of people. Be a medical scientist, people rely on this job to save lives. Research and study, as you know, make money all at the same time.
Genetic counselor, yeah, my job is working with patients, help them understand the meaning of their genomic information.
Bioinformatician works with software and biology, interpret information, data, use statistical techniques.
Zoologists utilize genomics to identify and save endangered species, finding ways to help them multiply.
Genomics, genes, DNA, information, genome. Genetics, I study DNA. Yeah. I'm cracking the code. I study genomes. Genes and the DNA of people.
That's really good.
Okay, we have broached another frontier in STEM awareness. Mark this date down on your calendar. This is terrific. Thank you, guys. Thank you for what a terrific panel. Give us another hand of applause. Congressman Scott Peters, not only a congressman but a talk show host, and what an amazingly accomplished group of people who have some really clear insights. Gives you some confidence that San Diego's going to do okay. So thank you guys for being with us. Okay, next we have a couple more things. You can go. I mean, I know you want to keep talking, but we've got to get on with the show. And mindful of your time, we're going to get you out of here by 12:30, as we promised. A couple more things, a couple important things on the agenda. So our next speaker is someone who encapsulates so many of the themes that we've explored over the last several days. Joey Talia is a San Diego native who currently works as a circuit designer at Intel. A first-generation college student, Joey was helped on the path to college and STEM in middle and high school through AVID, which is a global nonprofit that works to close the achievement gap by helping students find their way to college and careers. AVID has a presence in 46 states, and the program helps some 1.5 million students each year, many of them from underserved backgrounds. They are one of our supporting organizations for this event, and we thank them for all they do. So let's let Joey say some more about how he got to where he is today. Please welcome to the stage Joey Talia.
So I don't know how I'm going to follow up with that rap, but I'm going to try. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm going to start this off with a couple of stats. So the average U.S. salary is $45,000, and the average STEM salary is $75,000. And according to Princeton University, the perfect salary for happiness is $75,000. So the goal is to help young people find fulfilling STEM careers that drive their passion and lead a comfortable life. And that's why we're all here at the STEM conference. So hi, my name is Joey Talia. I grew up in the East County of San Diego, and I went to UC Berkeley for college. I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering and computer science. Afterwards, I got a job at Intel as a circuit designer, and I've been doing that for the last 5 years. At Intel, I designed part of the GPU, which goes in laptops, desktops, tablets, and servers. And I'm also happy to share some great news. I was recently accepted into the UCSD Rady MBA program. So, so my goal is to leverage my STEM background with business, possibly becoming a product manager. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was an AVID student for a total of 6 years through middle school and high school. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. AVID essentially has, AVID is a college and career readiness program to help students get into college. And that's their main goal, help students get into college. Thankfully, all my Avid classmates at Monte Vista High School were accepted into a four-year university. Monte Vista High School is not in the wealthiest part of San Diego by no means, but the faculty really offers a competitive education. My parents never went to college, and they never knew the process of getting into college, so the help I got through Avid was priceless. My Avid teachers cared deeply about each student, and I remember my Avid teacher, Mr. Campillo, sitting with me and helping me edit my college essays. I really appreciate his help, and I can honestly say that Avid really makes a difference and really changed lives. Growing up, I was really good at math. In high school, I skipped pre-calculus. I finished calculus 2 my junior year, and so my high school didn't offer any more math courses. So I went to Cuyamaca College, and I took differential equations. That's when I knew that a STEM major would be perfect for me. But what if I never had the chance to take such advanced courses? My high school and Cuyamaca College gave me the opportunity to challenge myself. They enabled me to take courses that would shape my career goals. And Avid, along the way, they always tell us to push yourself and challenge yourself, and I've always had that mindset. The business community also stepped in and gave me opportunities too. The University Club partners with Avid every year to offer 5 Lampa Learning scholarships to Avid students in the San Diego area. I was very fortunate to win the grand prize. The University Club stepped in to support our local community, and I really appreciate what they did. And when I was in Berkeley, I graduated a year early, so the rest of my scholarship money, I gave it back to the organization to donate back to another student, because the money really did a lot for me. So, and I had a really good job at Intel, so it was like, why not help somebody else? Aside from that, I have a couple of tips that educators can emphasize in the classroom, especially in STEM. First, we should teach students that failure is okay. College is a lot tougher than high school. College is a lot harder than high school, and one day they may not do so well on a test. But don't let a test persuade them to change their major or even drop out. They should really think if they feel passionate about that topic, and if they do, stick with it. Don't give up. And if they're unsure, ask for help. There's help everywhere with counselors and teachers and faculty. Everybody's there to help. My next piece of advice is don't be so competitive. Let me give you an example. At Intel, I work in a team of 30 people, and we all work hard together. We work on the same team for the same company, working on the same product. So we have a lot of incentive to help our teammates, because then our team becomes more productive. So in college, there's really no reason to be so competitive. And that's actually how I got my job. So my friend had just got an offer at Intel, and another team wanted to interview him. So he forwarded my information, I interviewed, and I got hired. I want to end this speech with a call to action. I have a question. So how can a student pick computer science as a major if it's not taught in high school? They don't know what it is, and they're not sure if they'll be passionate about it, or at least my high school never had it, and I majored in computer science. So students are forced to take a leap of faith, and I think that's why there's a lack of technical talent in the US. We need to help students get excited about STEM at a young age and offer classes that give them an equal opportunity. And I also think STEM executives should reach out to Avid and offer tours and discussions to help them get excited about STEM jobs. And that's how we can impact future generations. I would like to thank Avid and US News for having me here today, and thank all of you guys for your time. And have a nice 3-day weekend.
Thanks, Joey. That's some terrific wisdom, hard-earned, and very valuable insights. That is where the rubber meets the road for a lot of us, and it's great to see that we're making some progress. So we're close here. This has been a tremendous conference, very energetic. Do you think we should do it again next year? Okay, all right, I'm sold. We're going to do it. You may remember, some of you, that in 2014, We can't stay in San Diego, okay? We promise. We're sort of West Coast, East Coast, because there's a whole other world out there or there's a whole other world out here. I can never quite get that straight. But in any event, 2014, we were in Washington, D.C., which is my town. We're based in Washington. And we partnered with the USA Science and Engineering Festival, which is if you're not familiar with it, we're going to tell you what that is. But it was a great collaboration, and we're going to do that again next year. Some of you may know, we were very saddened to learn of the death of Larry Bach, our good friend from San Diego, who founded the San Diego Science Festival and the USA Science Festival in Washington. Larry passed away last year, left a tremendous legacy in advancing the STEM cause. But keeping that going is the executive director of the USA Science and Engineering Festival, Mark Schulman, who worked with Larry for many years. And I would like Mark to come out, tell you a little bit about the Science Festival, and then I'll tell you a little bit about our piece of that. So please welcome Mark Schulman.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it very much. The USA Science and Engineering Festival is very proud to co-locate with the U.S. News STEM Solutions Conference. So now you're going to have the largest professional STEM conference co-located with the largest K-12 STEM education and workforce development event. It's going to be an amazing weekend. For those of you that have never seen the USA Science and Engineering Festival, I'd like to play a very quick video because the visuals say it all. So if you don't mind, please run the video.
So many fields of science here, it's really amazing.
We're trying to inspire kids to go into STEM education.
A lot of very smart kids.
And I've always wanted to be a scientist since I was really little.
It's been really cool. What were you supposed to find?
Science is light.
You'd never ordinarily be able to see all this at one time.
Science solves the problems of the world.
I saw some dancing robots.
I love space.
Quantum quantum physics.
Things that they really can't see in the classroom.
This is Disney World for science and engineering. It's pretty cool, huh? So what you just saw is 2.4 million square feet of exhibits, over 1,400 individual organizations, as well as 365,000 students, teachers, and parents that came to our event over 3 days. It's huge. It's the largest event in the convention center's history. Like I mentioned, we're very excited to have all of you back. The event will be April 3rd through 8th, and that includes both of our two conferences. I welcome all of you to attend and hopefully even to exhibit and participate. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in Washington, D.C.
Thanks, Mark. He's not kidding. This is a really spectacular venue that the event these guys put on. And we're going to do our thing the way we do it here this is the thought leader, the leadership conference. We're going to have great people, speakers, breakouts, so that sort of thing, and then segue into the parent and student consumer piece of it. And the combination, I think, is really going to be terrific. So April 4, 5, and 6 for the STEM solutions, and then carries over into the weekend. So see if you can make a weekend out of it. Bring some kids. Really, really very inspirational. Okay, so we're at the final stages now. I want to start by thanking the many speakers and moderators, supporting organizations that were with us. Couldn't do it without them. I want to thank the sponsors. Really a great collection of folks that helped us pay the light bills and the lunch. CH2M, the Samueli Foundation, Strata Education Network, STEM Next, AIR, Dow, Northrop Grumman, Regeneron, ACT, Qualcomm, Monsanto, the Californians Dedicated to Education Foundation, Ford, and many more. We had enough people to run a small country in terms of economy here. So it was really terrific to have them all here. I want to thank San Diego for being a great host city again, making it fun and lovely. Hard to say no coming here. I hope we can come back here in a couple of years. We're a little far ahead for that, but we're going to keep working on that. number of folks have been very kind to come up to me and offer their thoughts. We want to continue to hear your thoughts on this. Feedback is really essential. How can we make this better? We do want to keep it going, and we're here to serve your interests. We put the tent up, but it doesn't make any sense unless we get great people coming together. A number of folks said, veterans, we're now, this is year 6, and were very kind to say they thought this was the best ever. I might tend to agree with that. I thought there was so much energy here. I thought there was so much good dialogue. The networking was terrific. I love hearing people putting pieces together and helping solve their problems by learning about what folks are doing in other parts of the country. And I think, as I said at the outset, there are still some big challenges that we have, but it feels like real progress is being made. And I feel like real progress is being made here. I feel like we're able to talk about tangible solutions in a way that maybe we weren't a few years ago. And it's a long road. Been a lot of frustrations, I think. A lot of work that has to be done still going forward. But I feel like this is really worthwhile, and I hope you do too. So thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you in D.C.